Daredevils play on top of planes at 185 kilometers an hour.
That's like they're in a Category 3 hurricane.
A pet owner survives the world's deadliest snakes, biting the hands that feed them.
These snakes are 100% fatal.
And a stuntman cheats death as more than a dozen cars run over his stomach.
If something went wrong, the car could flatten him.
Whether fact, fakes, or flukes, we'll dissect these amazing web videos and break down the science behind them. Right now, on Superhuman Science. Two Stearman biplanes soar in unison across a clear desert sky. Atop each plane, the open-air acrobatics of Britain's Breitling wingwalkers.
Acrobatics and dance are hard enough to do on flat ground. You're just upping the ante by doing this in the air on wings.
This is not easy.
Just as amazing, Serbian tennis star Novak Djokovic is about to have the game of his life, with his feet strapped to a wing. He keeps the ball in play, volleying high above the earth.
This guy definitely ups the ante. While this looks like it could be trick shots, there's no reason that it couldn't be real.
Are these wingwalkers daring or insane?
I think this would be pretty difficult to do because you'd have to have a good mental focus to not freak out whenever you think you're gonna fall.
There's always risks and danger, but that danger almost makes you feel more alive.
Our experts take a closer look at the science behind this spectacle.
There are a couple of factors to worry about here. One is the lack of oxygen at these heights.
Once you get high enough in altitude, the air starts to thin out. If you go high up enough, you may have no oxygen.
A lack of oxygen has severe and immediate effects on our body. The vessels in our lungs narrow, our heart rate increases, and our blood has trouble fueling the cells. The most sensitive organ to a shortage of oxygen is the brain.
With a lack of oxygen comes symptoms such as dizziness, nausea, disorientation,
So they can actually faint while they're up there pretty easily.
and that would not be good.
These daring wingwalkers are held only by a harness as they dance, hang upside down, and perform stunts under intense wind pressure.
The planes are flying through the air at 185 kilometers per hour. That means that the air is coming at the wingwalkers at 185 kilometers per hour. Imagine dancing in a Category 3 hurricane.
It's even harder to play tennis.
When you first look at this, you would think, how is this even possible? Can you play tennis standing on the wings of an airplane? But it turns out, based on the physics, it is possible. And here's why. When you're actually moving forward on the wings of the plane, both players are staying together and the ball is moving forward with the speed of the plane. They're all in the same frame of reference. When the ball's being hit back and forth between players is the only time that the drag force could take the ball out of the frame of reference. However, we're watching professional tennis players hit. Chances are they can hit hard enough to get the ball across the wingspan quickly without it being too affected by the wind.
No matter what they're doing, there's another danger wingwalkers face.
The other thing to worry about are G-forces, the force of gravity, the acceleration due to gravity. Ordinarily, we're experiencing 1 G. That's 1 gravitational constant's worth of acceleration due to gravity in real life.
But these wingwalkers can experience up to 4 Gs.
And the reason this is a problem is because the brain needs oxygenated blood.
At 4 Gs, our heart needs 4 times the pressure to do the same job. And if our heart can't do it, then the blood will start to pool in different parts of our body.
That's called G-lock. It's short for gravity-induced loss of consciousness. And that's what you really have to watch out for.
While we can't call this superhuman, these wingwalkers deserve a huge high five for their nerves of steel and grace under pressure.
Once the planes level out and they go at some kind of constant velocity, it's basically just like you're walking around on the floor, except that there's a lot of wind going by you.
Still, they're awesome to watch.
But don't call them wing walkers, call them stuck to the plane people.
Now we move from wingtop stunts to venomous snake bites. In the USA, a Wisconsin man releases the world's most deadly snake from his home tank.
Black mamba.
This is the most rapidly fatal venom there is in all snakes, period.
A black mamba snake bite can kill you in 30 to 120 minutes.
Astonishingly, he provokes the lethal black mamba to bite him.
I don't see anyone else in this room, but I hope somewhere in the back is a medical doctor and a team ready to respond in case he has a terrible adverse reaction.
Moments later, he's at it again with another deadly snake.
PNG taipan.
The PNG taipan sinks its fangs into the man's other arm.
Taipan snake bite can kill you in just 30 minutes.
This guy is doing a crazy experiment on his body. He's basically got the top 2 most lethal snakes, and in one session, he's had them both bite him and inject their venom.
Hour and a half later, black mamba, taipan. Back to back in 5 minutes.
This is Tim Freed, a snake enthusiast and a self-experimenter.
I don't see any way that the video has been manipulated. I don't see any cuts in the video. I don't see any inconsistencies in lighting or shadow or any other types of manipulation. I guess he's actually crazy enough to let these snakes bite him.
These particular snake venoms are neurotoxins. That means that they poison your brain.
How is it possible to survive such poisonous snake bites? Our experts look at the science.
Scientifically, this is possible. I mean, this is how an anti-serum works. So to make an anti-serum, what you would do is you'd take snake venom and inject it into, say, a rabbit and purify the antibodies that the rabbit makes, and then you would inject those into yourself.
But Tim claims he doesn't use anti-venom.
No antivenom used, no money spent. And that's the point.
I am not aware of anyone that's been bitten with these snakes and survived without antivenom.
2 bites, nice.
What did it feel like?
Burns. You can see the swelling already. Yeah, 1 inch by 1 inch.
Tim claims he survives because he's built up his immunity.
I've made all those antibodies built to bind to that venom right now as we speak to not kill me.
I think this could very well be real. It's certainly feasible, in principle, to immunize yourself against chemicals such as snake venoms.
You could build up the right repertoire of antibodies so that when you have a full snake bite, your body knows how to fight it.
That has not been proven in snake venom, to my knowledge.
Over the years, Tim has survived toxic quantities of snake venoms multiple times. And in our book, that's superhuman.
So that's that, not dead.
A normal person can't do this. He's actually made himself a little bit superhuman.
That's an impressive feat. If he's in fact built that immunity over time, I'd want to study him a little more.
Up next, we shift from deadly snakes to a death-defying snowboard jump. Then still ahead, a stuntman steals his stomach for the crushing weight of 15 one-ton cars. And a world record card thrower slices and dices with razor-thin precision. High above the ground in Reykjavik, Iceland, a thrill-seeking snowboarder prepares for the jump of his life. A roof-to-roof backflip across a massive 12-meter gap.
I've been looking at this roof gap for like 3 years and I always wanted to do it, but I was never really sure if it was possible or not.
This guy's pretty crazy to even attempt this.
These kinds of stunts and tricks are really risky and potentially fatal.
It's a spectacular jump to watch, but is it believable? Is there a chance it's fake?
I don't see any signs of visual manipulation. The shadows are all consistent. There's no evidence of pixelization. Everything seems to be real.
The rider is Halldór Helgason. He's a gold medal winner at the Winter X Games and one of the best urban snowboarders today. So a dangerous stunt like this doesn't stop him from risking everything.
This is the kind of thing that gives a doctor a heart attack.
Halldór's snowboard skills are legendary, and our scientists say he's a natural.
I believe innately he knows the physics behind this jump.
He makes these mini calculations and mini corrections every time he's on a ramp, a half pipe, a jump.
It's natural to him, you know, he is at home on this snowboard.
So how does he make this dangerous jump? It starts with speed.
We know that he covered about 12 meters in roughly 2 seconds, or 6 meters per second. Converting that to kilometers per hour, and we see that he was going between 21 and 22 kilometers per hour.
If he doesn't get that speed, he's either not going to be able to make the flip or not going to be able to make it across.
To limit the risk of injury, Haldor does take some precautions.
If you freeze the video right here, you can actually see that he's propped mattresses up against the building.
Like, that's going to prevent an injury if he runs into the wall, you know?
Haldor's pop-off, or take-off, is critical to survive this dangerous flip and jump.
He's flipping about his pelvis. That's his axis of rotation.
He needs to apply just the right amount of torque to flip. Torque is the twisting force that causes rotation.
If he's crouched down, there's a really short distance between his pelvis and the ramp where the force is being applied. If he straightens his knees, there's a larger distance. And that larger distance and the larger torque means he can flip faster.
Few of us would try this once, yet he did it twice.
The first hit, when I did it, the RC heli didn't really get the shot, so I decided to go up to try it again. I was pumped. It was worth it.
Haldor Helgason has earned his place as one of the most iconic snowboarders of his generation. But is he superhuman? Yeah, close enough.
He's superhuman from a bravery perspective.
Super crazy.
From head-over-heels snow jumps, we shift next to abs of steel versus one-ton cars. And later, some eye-popping fancy footwork but stunts. In Germany, a showman performs a risky stunt. More than a dozen one-ton cars drive right over him, yet he sails through it all.
You could have broken ribs. One of those ribs could puncture his heart. I mean, this is a potentially deadly stunt.
He's Daniel Peric, an actor with abs of steel. That is, if we believe what we see.
You can actually tell that this is not digitally manipulated, because if you look at the reflections of him in each car as it drives by, that's just too real to be faked.
So why doesn't Daniel get crushed? Our experts say his use of science protects him.
What I see here is a carefully orchestrated stunt. It looks like there's a lot of risk here, but I think a lot of it has been mitigated by the way it's been set up.
If he's just lying on the pavement and a car ran him over, he would probably die. And that's because the pavement has nowhere to go.
First, he's in a trough level with the platforms as each car runs over him.
Were he not in that trough, there's a significant chance that he would not survive.
He's also not actually feeling the entire weight of each car.
If you take a closer look, what you'll notice is that one tire runs him over at a time. Approximately a quarter of the car's mass is actually acting on his body.
It's only for a second or two, but it's still a tremendous amount of pressure.
This car is about 1,000 kilograms. Every time that tire goes over his stomach, that's the equivalent of 4 to 5 people stepping on him all at once.
Rock-hard abs are a must for this stunt.
He has to have abdominal muscles that provide some protection to his intra-abdominal organs.
His stomach is really taking a beating throughout this whole process.
And so all those muscles, I'm certain, are quite strong in him.
Daniel's singing is part of his survival strategy too.
He's singing through the whole thing, which is basically just added flair, but it also helps remind himself to flex his abs and steel himself for when the car comes over.
But even with all this detailed setup, one small deviation could be deadly.
If that tire goes too far up or too far down from what he's prepared for, that's not going to go over well and could actually give him a crushing blow.
There's no denying that Daniel Peric's stunt is gutsy. But is it superhuman?
I wouldn't call him fully superhuman, but he's pretty close. We know he has car-proof abs. Talk about the weight of the world on your chest, you know?
From a real stomach-turning feat, we move next to slice and dice card tricks. Our next video is not your typical magic trick. An assistant holds a target, and a most unlikely object flies through the air. and slices through an olive.
This is incredible.
American performer Rick Smith Jr. throws playing cards so well, it's even earned him a world record.
It's not the most conventional way to make a salad, but certainly the most interesting.
So when I see someone doing a card trick, actually I first think of a magician. So this has to be some sort of illusion, and it's not really happening.
Still, it's hard for our brain to believe a flimsy playing card can cut so deep.
It's easy to manipulate playing cards in 3D. Then you can put that card into an actual shot and composite it together for a trick or an effect. But since he's doing it in front of a live audience, that's where it's real.
Which leads us to Rick's first feat, the force of his throw.
The way he does it is he actually takes a sidearm throw where his arm goes out and around and like that.
He actually is able to throw this card at the same speed as a US Major League Baseball player, which can be around 41 meters per second. And the playing card is about 1.8 grams versus 142 grams for the typical US baseball. And so you actually need a lot more force to get the same speed at the end of the throw.
Then there's the way he throws.
What's interesting though is his release style. Right there is what I'm talking about. He starts with a baseball windup, but the actual flick at the end to get the right rotation on it is not all overhand. It's impressive.
Rick has also mastered the physics of card throwing.
There's actually 232 times more surface area on the flat part of the card versus the side of the card.
So by making it more edge-on, you reduce the effective air resistance, letting the card go through the air a lot better.
Finally, it's what happens at impact that determines the cut.
The amount of pressure that card applies to the vegetable when it hits has to do with two factors: force and the square of the area that's hitting the vegetable.
The smaller the area of impact, in this case the thin side of the card, the greater the pressure.
That's why if I press on my finger with a pencil eraser like that, it doesn't really hurt. But if I take the sharpened tip of a pencil, I'm injured a lot more quickly with the same amount of pressure.
Still, there is something that sets Rick Smith Jr. and his card throwing apart from the rest of us.
In level 3 and level 4 tornadoes, they actually hit the same speeds in miles per hour that Rick here is throwing at.
And in our book, his amazing arm is superhuman.
I definitely wouldn't want to be in the path of one of these cards that he's throwing.
If he's dealing in Monaco, you don't want to walk away from his table without leaving a tip.
Finally, from card-cutting throws, we look at some wild and baffling football club bus stunts. This is Germany's Borussia Dortmund football club on the road. To pass the time, they dream up new stunts for their fans. And they find new angles on trick shots to test goalies. But not to be outdone, fellow national team Kaiserslautern uses their heads to come up with a competing stunt. But staunch league rivals Bayern Munich tries to outdo them all with its own twist on the Borussia Dortmund stunt.
These guys were having a lot of fun.
But are these rival bus stunts real or just off-pitch fakes, hoping to become viral videos?
The physics of soccer is the physics of projectile motion. You're making that ball move in a parabola, and the amount of energy that you kick that ball with determines how far it goes.
This video could be possible. We're dealing with professional soccer players who can put a lot of force behind that ball.
Possible, yes, but probable? To find out, our experts break down the science. First, Borussia Dortmund stunt.
When that soccer ball hits the wall, it's hitting it at a certain angle. It's going to come back at that same exact angle. The angle of incidence is going to equal the angle of reflection. And so it has to have the right angle and the right speed to make it back in time before the bus actually clears that spot.
While the angle of incidence matches, other questions remain.
The part that I'm not convinced on is based on gravity, the ball would have fallen before it came back to the bus, so I'm surprised that they're able to catch it at the same vertical height as where it was kicked from.
The Bayern Munich stunt. with the ball ricocheting off a street sign is even more suspect.
If that bus is moving at roughly 35 kilometers per hour, that means it's moving 9.2 meters per second, which means the ball would have only had 1 second or less to hit that sign and come back. I don't think that's likely. Possible, yes, but definitely not likely.
You can decide for yourself if this stunt is real. Just keep your eye on the ball, if you can.
When looking at stunts on video, you should always be suspect if an object goes out of the frame and then comes back in.
And if you can't follow the ball, you can at least count the edits.
It's video cuts. One single cut of the man kicking the ball, a second cut of a ball hitting a surface and bouncing back, and a third cut of someone catching the ball. There's no reason to believe that's all one shot.
Finally, Borussia Dortmund tries to up the ante with an even more amazing bus stunt.
The shot where we see the bus on 2 wheels is fun, but there's absolutely no way that this is real. If you take a look at the shadows underneath the bus in general, they're off. If we stop right here, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You would expect for the trees on that side to be in shadow as the bus goes by, but they're still brightly lit in the sunshine because that bus is actually not there.
That's 3 fake shots, but there is one that might be real.
The most likely clip to be real here is the one where the guy heads the ball into the trash basket on the bus.
While we won't judge whether either team is superhuman on the football pitch, we can safely say their bus antics are super entertaining.
It's a lot of fun to watch these guys use physics in a cool way to make these shots happen.